Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we try to cut through the noise and bring you insights you can actually use. Today, we're tackling something huge, a universal human experience that still feels, well, profoundly misunderstood: grief. Every single one of us faces loss. But, modern society often leaves us feeling really ill-equipped. Lost, even. We're taking a deep dive into what it truly means to grieve, and our guide for this is a book called Grieving for Dummies. Now, wait, before you judge that title, let me tell you, this book is surprisingly comprehensive, really nuanced. It challenges a lot of the usual thinking about loss.
It absolutely does. And our mission today really is to go beyond just the raw emotions of grief, important as they are. We want to explore the other dimensions too, the physical side, the social aspects, even the spiritual, give you a kind of roadmap for your own healing maybe, but also for supporting others effectively. And crucially, seeing grief as a natural human response, not, some kind of illness we need to cure. That distinction is key.
Okay, so let's unpack this then. Why is something so basically human, like grief, why is it so difficult for us to navigate today? It really strikes me it's universal, but we feel so alone when it hits. What are the big challenges?
Well, the guide highlights something interesting. Our society has this really low tolerance for loss. We're so focused on winning, on achieving, on success, on gain.
Right, constantly moving forward, getting more.
Exactly. And that whole mindset actually makes us undervalue grief. It starts to feel like an interruption, something to be avoided or just gotten over quickly, not, a natural part of life, even though it's painful.
That really hits home. It's like we learn skills for achieving things, but not for feeling things. Or for losing gracefully, I suppose. So we don't have many role models for what healthy grieving even looks like. Which means when that huge wave of emotion crashes down, the anger, the sadness, that feeling of just utter despair, it's almost impossible to know if what you're feeling is quote-unquote normal. And the book points out how harmful it is when people, maybe meaning well, say things like loss is divine punishment or bad karma, especially with illness or disasters.
Oh, definitely. It just adds suffering. And this ties into something deeper, doesn't it? Our discomfort with mortality itself. The guide calls the great fear of death the big kahuna. It's like the underlying fear that just complicates everything about grief.
We kind of live like we'll be here forever.
We do. We use euphemisms, passed away, lost them,
Bump stare.
which kind of buffers us from the reality. And the insight there is, well, how can we really process grief if we can't even face our own mortality or help others face theirs?
And yet change is the only constant. The author mentions starting his day thinking about Heraclitus Pantere, everything flows, which is crucial, right? Because change includes the tough stuff: decline, disability, displacement, what the guide calls life's big downers. Zach. So if you're right in the thick of early grief, feeling that intense emotional upheaval, that complete lack of focus, the guide is really emphatic. It is definitely temporary. That's so important to hear. And this idea that joy and grief are like two sides of the same coin, you can't really have one without the other. But we sort of naively believe we can just skip the losing part, skip the difficult feelings, which just makes grieving harder when it inevitably comes.
Okay, so one of the most crucial insights for me from the guide is that grief just isn't linear at all. It calls it a highly individual, unpredictable roller coaster ride, which completely blows up the idea of neat stages, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Forget the tidy timeline. The book stresses it'll take however long it takes. Trying to rush it usually makes things worse.
And a huge factor shaping that very personal journey is the manner of death. Think about anticipated loss, like from a long illness or dementia. That's a very different experience than a sudden, unexpected death.
Yeah, let's dive into that anticipated loss. It's complex. If you're caring for someone with a fatal illness or severe disability or dementia, you often go through anticipatory grief. It's this deep sadness knowing death is coming, but also you're already losing the person you knew.
Right. Their personality changes, maybe their cognitive abilities decline. Can feel like losing them twice over.
Exactly. And the stress on caregivers is immense. The guide talks a lot about caregiver burnout, the need for support there, validating those really complicated feelings.
Then you have sudden loss. That carries a totally different kind of weight. Survivors often find themselves replaying everything, second-guessing. Could I do enough? Could I have stopped it?
Yeah.
Taking on blame, even when it's completely irrational.
That need to understand why.
Yes. It's this deep human need to find a cause, to assign blame maybe to ourselves, maybe to someone else, maybe even to God, even in situations like natural disasters where there's no one to blame.
Yeah.
It can trigger a real crisis of faith for some people.
And the guide talks about death by suicide as maybe the most uniquely painful and complicated loss. It calls it a triple whammy. There's the intense grief, of course, but then it's layered with feelings of shame, guilt, and often the sense of societal judgment or dishonor, because sadly, suicide is still so stigmatized. It adds this awful, isolating burden on families.
Yeah, it's incredibly tough. And the guide is great at showing how all losses have their own complexities. Think about losing a sibling. That's often called disenfranchised grief because society doesn't always acknowledge how deep that bond is. People feel alone in it.
Overlooked.
Or losing a beloved pet. For many people, that grief is just as profound, just as challenging as losing a human family member. That unconditional love, that daily presence. And even how a child understands death is complex.
Yeah.
It changes so much depending on their age, how they grasp time, permanence. It's a whole journey.
It really brings us back to facing our own mortality, doesn't it? The author shares this practice from Azumi Roshi, challenging people to come up with their own personal definition of death.
That's fascinating.
For the author himself, his definition became, death is being born into the world of unity, which isn't about denial. It sounds more like seeing birth and death as connected parts of one reality.
A different perspective.
So, okay, we've talked about the complexity of the societal issues. What practical help does the guide offer when you're right in the middle of it, that initial crisis phase?
Right, the grief crisis management part. It really starts with the absolute basics. Self-care. Sounds simple, but it's crucial. You have to concentrate your energy on looking after yourself.
Right.
Physically and emotionally. That means trying to eat right, even with zero appetite, just for strength. Getting enough rest is huge, too.
Sleep can be so hard, though.
It really can. The guide mentions that maybe, short-term, a prescription sleep aid could be an option, but with a big caution about dependence. It's a vulnerable time.
It's important.
And that brain fog, the difficulty concentrating. Remind yourself, it's temporary. It's part of the process, not a sign you're breaking down. And the biggest warning, trying to numb the pain, drowning sorrows in alcohol or drugs.
Yeah.
The guide is clear. It always backfires. It intensifies the sorrow eventually.
Doesn't lessen it. Okay, so self-care first, then what? The guide emphasizes expressing grief, but what does that really look like?
Well, it says grief needs to be stated, vented, shown, described, even symbolized. It needs an outlet.
So not just feeling it, but doing something with it?
Exactly. And one powerful way is through your own rituals. These don't have to be formal or religious. You could create a personal grief memorial, maybe a little shrine. Pick a place, a time. Choose activities that feel right for you. Could be listening to a special song, reading a meaningful poem, or honestly, just giving yourself permission in that space to yell, scream, cry, whatever you need. Intentional release.
I like that idea of intentionality. And beyond rituals.
The guide strongly advocates creative expression. Writing, visual arts, music.
How does that help specifically?
Well, journaling, for example, using prompts like, here's what I'll miss most, or life without you is like, can help you explore feelings you might not even know you had. And visual arts, painting, drawing, sculpting, they let you express emotions that you literally have no words for yet. The act itself could be incredibly releasing, transformative.
That makes sense, getting it out somehow.
And we can't forget the physical side. Mind and body are so linked here. Grief can show up as chest pains, shortness of breath, even full-blown panic attacks. It's scary.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So the guide suggests soothing therapies, simple things like meditative deep breathing exercises. They can calm you down right in the moment. Even self-massage, just rubbing your temples, your neck, your feet, can release physical tension.
Tangible relief. Okay, so creative outlets, self-care. These seem great for the mind, the spirit, but what if the grief feels really stuck in your body? That physical tension?
Great question. For that deeper level, the guide points towards transformative bodywork. Things like Rolfing or the Feldenkrais method. These aren't just massages. They work on movement patterns and deep tissue to help release tension where grease might be physically stored.
Interesting. Releasing it from the body itself.
Exactly. And meditative movements like yoga or Tai Chi can do something similar, releasing tension, calming the nervous system. Plus, never underestimate just physical exercise. Playing sports, going for a run, it releases endorphins, helps manage emotions, and can give back a sense of control when everything feels chaotic.
It really is a whole person approach, isn't it? Mind, body, spirit.
Totally. The body holds a lot. The guide even touches briefly on things like aromatherapy, lavender for calm, rose for emotional wounds, and acupressure for tension points. Little things that might help.
And finally, a really practical point. Holidays and anniversaries. Ugh. They can be brutal, especially that first year.
So tough.
The guide suggests maybe Not avoiding them, but finding ways to celebrate with the loved one in mind, creating new traditions.
Like borrowing from the Day of the Dead idea for Halloween, actively remembering and honoring.
Yeah. But it also warns against, like, trying to shop your way out of sadness at Christmas, that impulse buying. It doesn't work.
Definitely not a lasting solution.
So we've covered a lot about the experience and coping, but what happens when grieving gets stuck or when people actively avoid it? The book calls this troubled grieving.
Right. And it's important here to distinguish between grief and trauma. Traumatic deaths, sudden, violent, maybe high profile, can cause actual trauma symptoms, flashbacks, avoidance, making it incredibly hard to even accept the death happened.
Like being frozen in time.
Exactly. People might literally freeze their life, keep a room unchanged for years. And another really insightful point is about traumatic relationships. If the person who died was an abuser, grieving is incredibly complex. You might need to process the abuse first, the loss of trust, safety, before you can even touch the grief of their death.
Wow, that adds layers. And what about just regular avoidance? How do people typically sidestep grief?
Oh, lots of ways. The guide mentions absent grieving, basically refusing to engage, insisting I'm fine right from the
Just
start.
push it down.
Yep. Or getting hyper busy. That story of Sarah Winchester constantly building her house for decades after her family died. An extreme example, but it illustrates using endless activity to avoid the pain.
Keep moving so you don't have to feel.
And the one we mentioned before, trying to anesthetize the pain with substances, which again just digs a deeper hole, intensifies the sorrow.
So if grief does get stalled, are there ways to gently nudge it forward?
Yes, the guy offers a couple of ideas. One is simply retelling the story of your relationship with the person you lost, maybe to different friends or a therapist. Each time you might remember something new or see it from a slightly different angle. Gain perspective.
That makes sense. Processing it through narrative.
Or going back to creativity, actively working with the pain through writing, art, music. It can unlock things that just staying busy won't touch.
Okay, let's shift to helping someone else. This is where so many of us feel awkward, unsure what to do or say. The guide has this brilliant section debunking the top 10 cliches about grieving. You know the ones.
Oh yeah, time heals all wounds. They're in a better place. It's probably for the best.
Exactly. And the book says these aren't just unhelpful, they can be actively harmful, even if you mean well.
Because they shut the person down.
Right.
Right. They minimize the pain, imply they shouldn't be feeling what they're feeling.
So what should we do?
The most powerful thing, just listen.
Simple, but hard.
It can be. Because our instinct is often to fix it, to offer advice, to make the sadness go away. But the guide emphasizes just creating an open, non-judgmental space. Let them talk about anything and everything, or sit in silence if that's what they need. Why is that so powerful? Just listening. It affirms their reality. You give them back a bit of control when they feel powerless. It says, your feelings are valid.
That's huge, just being present.
And sometimes asking gentle questions can help them express things, not prying, but open-ended questions about their loved one or how they're feeling today.
It really is about creating that safe space. The guide also mentions support groups, which sound really valuable.
Definitely. There are different kinds, open, closed, specific loss types. And professional grief counselors, of course. And a key takeaway is being sensitive to all the factors affecting their grief. The relationship they had, how the person died, their own personality. Everyone's path is unique. You can't apply a one-size-fits-all approach.
Okay, so as we move towards the end of the grieving process, if end is even the right word.
Well, the guide talks more about integrating the loss, being transformed by it. Grief, it argues, is fundamentally a transformative process. Your life is never exactly the same afterwards.
Not about getting over it.
No, it's more about maintaining a connection with the person you lost, but in a new way. This might happen through grief dreams. The guide talks about different kinds, like visitation dreams, where the person seems real, offers comfort or reassurance dreams, or even trauma dreams, still processing.
Dreams can be powerful.
Or finding a spiritual connection, whatever that means to you. Using your own internal ways to feel like you're still in touch, that the relationship continues in spirit.
And finally, commemorating them. Keeping their memory alive.
Yes, finding ways to honor them. This could be creating a living legacy, maybe through community service they cared about, donations, planting a tree as a living memorial.
I love that idea.
Or more traditional memorials, online virtual memorials.
Oh.
There are many ways. The author shares this really touching story about his dog, his Sheltie. After the dog died, he realized, I didn't want to live without my dog's love, but also that I didn't have to.
How so?
But remembering him, all he meant to me. That act of remembering, of holding the love, keeps it present. Doesn't erase the pain, but it keeps the love alive too.
That's beautiful. So, grieving, as this guide really shows us, it isn't something to just push through or overcome. It's this deeply personal, often messy, non-linear journey of honoring the love, the connection, and letting it change you, building a new kind of relationship with their memory.
Exactly. And if you zoom out, look at the bigger picture. Grieving transforms us, not by making the loss disappear, but by actually deepening our capacity for love, for empathy, for compassion. It allows the influence of those we've lost to keep shaping us, weaving their legacy into the fabric of our ongoing lives. It's profound, really. So maybe something for you to think about is, what stands out to you from this deep dive? How might it shift your own perspective on loss for yourself, or maybe for how you support the people around you?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into understanding grief in our modern world. We really hope these insights offer some clarity, maybe some comfort, and perhaps a new way of looking at this truly universal, profoundly human experience. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.